All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the MMA Plug presented to you by 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. The UFC is coming back to Denver, ladies and gentlemen, and we are joined with a very special guest today. We have the strawweight GOAT who is now chasing flyweight glory. We have the one, the only Thug Rose Namajunas. How you doing, Rose?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time with us here today. Rose, I just want to ask you right away, being the headliner in Denver, how does that make you feel getting to have the opportunity? I know this is your adopted home or your migrated home, if you will, but how does it feel being in your backyard, getting to fight?
Man, it's pretty exciting. There's lots of I feel like there's already a lot of energy. I think people are already like buzzing about it. Um, I've made it my home. I've gotten pretty involved in the community, especially as of recently. So, um, I mean, every time I go for a run, somebody's beeping at me saying "champ," So it's a very motivating and encouraging, just to be able to give back something to the community that I feel like has done so much for me in terms of, I think just making a life out here has really it's it's really changed me as a person for the better. So I really appreciate being here and being able to headline.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do you think in your perception that it's kind of a little bit more of an anticipation for the fans because we didn't get the UFC here last year during the 30th year anniversary, where I think a lot of people thought that they would return just based off of being here for the 25th. And then UFC 300 just happened, which was a massive card that just, I think, skyrocketed the popularity and the awareness of the sport to an even higher level. So do you think all those things combined just amplifies the importance of this card coming back to the home of the UFC?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely. I remember the last time they were here. It was pretty exciting. So, I know everybody here loves MMA. Everybody here loves fighting. So, I know for sure, especially it being so long, and since then, yeah, the sport has exploded. It has. I mean, there's just. I don't know if it's just because I'm a fighter and my algorithm on my internet is really focused on MMA, but it does really seem like MMA really drives the algorithm. I don't know if it's just there's just so much to talk about, a lot of dumb stuff, but it definitely gets people talking. So I think people are going to be very excited for sure.
Absolutely. Now let's talk matchup here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of your opponent with Maycee, she is very much an in-your-face kind of dog brawler style fighter,
Yeah.
whereas I think that you're a very eloquent striker and you use your movement very well, and you like to kind of
Yes.
dictate the cadence and the pace. How
Yeah.
do you envision this going?
Yeah, she definitely likes to make it, I think her whole goal in every fight is to try to instill fear in her opponent, and for me it's all about uh tactically picking them apart and just making it to where they have no choice, but I'm just the better fighter. So that's my goal, is to be the better fighter everywhere. And no matter what, to me, I'm not going to pay attention to, I'm not focused on the emotions. I'm more focused on the game plan and the strategy and stuff like that. And then just my spirit being strong, is going to counter all of that other stuff. And so, yeah, I envision myself just really establishing my jab and her having a hard time dealing with my jab and her forcing stuff, and then me taking advantage of any holes or any mistakes that she makes. I think she gets away with making a lot of mistakes in her fights, because she's just her mentality is like, I'm always gonna keep fighting, and so she's really tough, and so I have to make it to where it's checkmate. Like, she has no choice but to pay for those mistakes and not let her get away with it.
Do you think that this being a fight that is in front of a crowd after, so many years of some of these fight nights being basically just stuck in the apex, do you think that there being the crowd energy, is that going to have any sort of impact in the fight? And also just recognizing your counterpart, that this is her home state too as well. Do you think that it's just going to be a mix of the electric energies from both of your fan bases?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I said earlier in the answer that I wasn't going to pay attention to emotions as much, or I was going to focus on it. But I mean, at the same time, the crowd's energy does affect emotions. You know what I mean? So as much as I'm not going to focus on it, I will try to, if emotions do get spiked or, I guess fueled, I'm going to try to use that as fuel as much as possible. And so I've been in those situations. I mean, I definitely, uh, fighting in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida versus Whaley. I
Wow.
mean, that was one of the most intense crowds I've ever been a part of, and I've fought in New York. I've fought multiple times in Vegas and things like that on big cards. And um so yeah, I mean, I expect there to be a lot of energy, and it's all about how I manage that how I facilitate it and use it to my advantage.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think that you've displayed the ability to remain calm under fire, if you will, in those sort of situations. I
Yeah.
mean, to a certain extent, that's kind of, in a way, I feel like that's kind of what your brand has been built around was, Joanna's going crazy and doing the whole
Yeah.
boogie woman talk, and you're just cool, calm under pressure right there, and then end up going out and having one of the most iconic broadcast calls of all time. Like, does that,
Yeah.
I guess, like, do you still get goosebumps when you hear that, or when you hear that clip of DC just yelling out Thug Rose, Thug Rose?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. I mean, we've played it so many times that for sure it still gets me amped up. It's still beautiful to watch, like forever. Um, but yeah, I mean but yeah, it's something that I've I've never really. I think that's the gift that God's given me is being able to perform under chaotic situations and things like that. And that's why I'm also excited to fight Maycee, because I do feel like she does perform well also um, under. I don't know how many of her fights can compare to the extreme, I guess, situations of my fights as far as like pressure and energy and things like that. I don't know if she's ever felt what I felt in there, but I do know that going against her, that's definitely one of her strong suits, and so I'm respectful of that, and I'm looking forward to making another iconic moment and being able to shine under that pressure.
Now that this is a couple of fights into your run at flyweight, do you feel
Yes.
like your body has acclimated and you've kind of started to settle in adjustment wise, or what was that process like for you?
Yeah, I still think there's still room for improvement, and there's always I think I'm still adjusting, but for the most part I've made leaps and bounds in that area as far as I feel like I'm keeping my size, around the same size. I'm not fluctuating as much. Every once in a while there's still fluctuations given, the intensity of my training, or I mean the weather's been like really intense lately. I don't know, it's been really hot here, so I've like kind of, my appetite kind of has gone down from that, but I feel like overall, I'm very used to this body now. Even like leading up to the last fight, my shoulders and stuff were giving me some problems going into the fight. Just given like the new muscle mass and throwing a little bit harder. So this since then to this fight to now, I've I've really tightened up my technique and really not just willy nilly throwing punches. Like I'm really focused on making sure that I'm putting my weight in the proper areas and not just, because when I was lighter, I could kind of get away with throwing not so correct punches. But now it's like, I got to maintain my health, especially if I have more muscle mass.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know we're running down on time with you, but I wanted to give you the opportunity. Is there any training partners or anybody of your camp, team, sponsors, anyone that you want to give a shout to?
Yeah. I want to say thank you to Raquel Pennington, JJ Aldrich, Miranda Maverick, um, Mallory Martin, everybody at Genesis, and all of my teammates and training partners, Chico Camus as well, Pat Berry as well, my husband, and just I would say yeah, shout out to Wesley Dog Park Guardians, the organization that's we're trying to fight to keep our dog park open in Westminster. And shout out to all the city councilors that are listening to us and being very supportive of us, and just listening to our complaints at city council all the time. So it's a hard job. So, you know, I appreciate them, and for listening to us and helping us, letting us be involved in the community. And I know there's some other ones, but thanks, Brian Butler, you know, for always helping out. And yeah, I think that's it for now. I can't think of anything else.
Absolutely. Rose, I have one last question for you, and this is something that I like to ask all of my guests. Has there been a song lyric, a quote, maybe a scene in a movie, something to that effect that is telling the tale of Rose for this camp?
Mm. Um, I would say the Bible verse uh I like is you know, for God have not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And that's my focus is, you know, anything that's fearful that tries to penetrate my mentality is like, that's not from God, that's of the devil, and I rebuke it. And I all, you know, God's given me a spirit of, you know, love and a sound mind, and self-control, and you know, peace and contentment and joy. So anything that's negative, that's like that, I have to combat that. And so that's my mentality going into this fight.
Very well said right there. Ladies and gentlemen, you have it very directly from the greatest women's strawweight of all time, who is now chasing that flyweight glory. Like we said, she'll be taking on Maycee Barber in that main event from Ball Arena on July 13th. Stick around after the break. We'll be giving you more combat sports coverage. I'm Jordan Kurtz. This is the MMA Plug presented to you by 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio.